Florida played out of their mind. I mean, if I told you at the beginning of the game that Florida goes down 21-3, you would have clapped your hand and you would have said that was it. But Florida didn't back down. They made it a hell of a ball game. It was exceptional the way they came back after the first quarter. At halftime, it was 21-9, and then in Florida, the way they were able to run the ball was insane to me. Alabama had a great, what was expected to be a really good run defense, and it didn't look like it. Florida ran the ball at will against Alabama, which was really, really surprising to me. So if you miss this show, you're always able to archive it later. Just go to at the Voice of College Football, or you can go to the Gator page. You can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. So let's go ahead and get underway. We're a couple minutes in. We're going to go an hour long with the Gator post-game show, the Gators final report. Okay. What killed Florida was the first half. Really, let me take that back. What killed Florida was the first quarter and the secondary. In the secondary, Florida could not tackle in the open field. They just couldn't. And that was an issue last year, and Dan Mullen blamed it all on COVID. Every team dealt with COVID. You can't blame that on COVID this time around, obviously. There was so many times where there was a third down, you could have stopped them right before the first down, got them on fourth down. There was a couple of times where you had them before the goal line to stop them for a touchdown, and they went in. On the first drive, a deep ball to, I forget his name, number 1 for Alabama. Trey Dean, pass interference, extends the drive. And a lot of the stuff that Alabama did was a dink and dunk. And, I mean, you can't blame him that Florida gave him his own defense, and they just took what they gave him. Alabama never went deep because they never needed to. And in those first 3 drives, Alabama ran the ball really, really well, which they didn't do after the second quarter. Offensively, they went right down the field and made it a field goal game when the crowd was still in it. And the crowd was in the game early. The ground was shaking on Alabama's first drive when Alabama first got the ball. Then Florida goes down, kicks the field goal. Crowd was still in it. Then it was 14-3 and then 21-3. And then the crowd didn't get back into it until Malik Davis scored that first touchdown. Then Florida gets that 3-and out when Brent Cox got the sack. I'm looking through a couple of my comments, a couple of notes that I wrote. As if you're just joining us, this is the Gators final report. We're at the Voice of College Football's YouTube page and the Gator page. Let's make sure we're liking and subscribing. I'm Dylan Denmark. I graduated from the University of Florida last year with a journalism degree. For the ones that don't know me, you can catch all the content I had this week. I interviewed Pat Dooley, formerly with the Gainesville Sun, and caught with Shane Matthews, former Florida quarterback, Tuesday and Wednesday. But yeah, the first drives for Florida and Alabama, both teams ran the ball really well. And the defensive backs were just atrocious. In the second drive, there was another penalty. It was Elam, I think, was getting a hold of one of the receivers. I think it was Mechie, I believe, for Alabama. It was a third down. That would have made a fourth down, brought the punt team. It extends the drive. Bama goes on to score a touchdown. And you can't have that. Florida, they needed to win time possession. They did. They needed to keep the turnovers to a minimum. They only had 1. And they needed to get off the field on third down. And they were able to for the most part, but they didn't do it early. That's why they trailed 21-3. I'm trying to look at a couple more of my notes before we get to your guys' question comments. First half overall, it was a bit surprising to me. Florida goes 1 for 3. They go for 1 on fourth down. They dominated the stat sheet. 200 yards to Alabama's 175. But this was the biggest thing to me that surprised me. If you look at who caught the ball, Florida was able to run the ball well. Malik Davis had 56 yards. Emory Jones had 40. And AR didn't play much. I'll get to that in a second. Gamble had 5 catches. Zipper had 2. Rick Wells had 1. And Whittemore had 1. No Henderson. No Copeland. There's another guy I'm missing. But those are 2 of your best guys, and they weren't able to get the ball. Now, I know Copeland, there was a pass interference that was on him at the 5-yard line. There was a couple of other targets that went to him, but he never got the ball. And in a big game, you got to give him the ball and make him do stuff. I didn't really understand that, and but the thing with Alabama, what they ran mostly was man. They were playing press coverage most of the game. They definitely were in the second half. That's why you saw Emory run the ball so much, because on the outside, the receivers would go, the DBs go with them, and it's just the line and green grass in front of you. And Emory Jones did mostly a decent job of escaping and getting yards when he needed. Let's see. I touched on secondary, no catches. Let's see. I wish they would have ran the ball a little bit more in the first half. And another thing defensively for Florida, Ventrell Miller didn't play, and it didn't look like that he was missed a lot. Obviously, he would have played a huge role. Zachary Carter was awful quiet in the game. Moon had a good game. Cox had a good game. And I said one of the keys to the game for Florida was getting pressure on Bryce Young. And there was Bryce Young. He's a dude. He is an absolute dude. He didn't look phased at all from that Gator crowd. I've been going to games since 2006. I'm only 23, granted. But the crowd didn't faze him at all. And one thing that surprised me were the amount of penalties that Alabama had. I forget what they ended up having total. But Alabama had a lot of penalties compared to what they're used to. Couple of offsides. There's 2 in the first 2 drives defensively for Alabama. And then there was a couple of false starts, but very, very unlike Alabama in that first half. The second half was an absolute doozy. If you counts the last 3 drives for Florida outside of that one play, Florida went 75 yards, 99 yards, 75 yards. You had that boneheaded play by Weston in the end zone. He drops it, bro, was out of bounds. That was an absolute boneheaded play that could have killed Florida. Instead, they go right down the field. The first catch, I think, was Naquan Wright, where he got the first down and got out of bounds, was a 15-yard run, or sorry, a catch out of the backfield. And right before that, Alabama just had an absolute great drive, 13 plays, 75 yards. The second half was absolutely amazing. There wasn't many empty seats, and the game was exceptional. It was back and forth. At least it felt like it in the stadium. I don't know how it was on TV. You can drop your comment as I'll get to your comments in a second and any questions you guys have. But it was 21-9. And then Florida scores on that first drive, I think, and it made it 21-16. And the momentum switched to Florida. I know Bama got a touchdown at 28-16, then Florida scores again. But it felt like in the entire second half, Florida had momentum the entire game until Alabama got that late first down with whatever it was, 2 minutes left, and they just ran out of time. Yeah, I see you guys talking about Anthony Richardson. I'll get to that in a moment. But the game, it was great. One of the best games I've ever been to. The run ability for Florida was outstanding. One of the best run defenses apparently going into the game was Alabama, and they sure didn't seem like it. The second, was it the last drive? No, it was the second to last drive when Florida had a 3rd and 19. Emory Jones connects with Whittemore, I think it was. It was a 4th and 2 and connects with Whittemore again. And Emory played really well. I know he had that one bad interception. That was one bad overthrow he had. But Florida, there was one of the times late in the game where it was right at the sticks, I think on a 4th down for Alabama. It was a 3rd and short or 4th and short. And that cost Florida late in the game, late in the 4th quarter. Bryce Young going toward the end zone when he threw it to one of his tight ends. But Florida played exceptionally well. I mean, if I would have told you, like I said in the beginning, if Florida goes up 21-3 first quarter, most fans would have said it's done with. You could have called it a wrap, and that would have been it. And Alabama would have been on cruise control going into next week. But that definitely wasn't the case. Florida, their run defense was outstanding. I'm going to look up how many stats Florida had, or excuse me, how many rushing yards Alabama had. It wasn't much. In the first half, Let me check here. In the first half, Alabama only had 30 rushing yards. Florida had 100. Alabama had 6 penalties for 40 yards in the first half. Florida did a lot well. They just trailed early, and a lot of that has to do with the secondary. You can blame whoever you want, but I mean, a lot of those plays. I know a lot of people want to blame Todd Grantham and the coaching, but when a coach's job is to put players in position to succeed, and there was a lot of times in that first half, and I'm a key in on the first half because that's where Florida lost the game. It was 21-3. And Florida, you can't catch up against a team like Alabama. Well, when you're down, let me correct myself. When Florida is in position to make plays and get the defense off the field or force the Alabama offense to kick a field goal, you have to take it. And Florida didn't do that. There was a pick play that where I think it was Helm and Elam. I know it was Elam. It was another defensive back that got tied up. There was 2 PIs that cost Florida. I think both were on third down. And you just can't have that against Alabama. You have to play a perfect game against Alabama to beat them. Now, Alabama didn't play well either. But, I mean, if you look back at the last time an SEC East team beat Alabama, it was from Stephen Garcia in South Carolina, and they played an absolutely perfect game. And also, the teams that have beaten Alabama have been mobile quarterbacks. Emory Jones is one of them, and generational talents. Emory Jones isn't a generational talent. He's just a good talent. Anthony Richardson is a generational talent. We'll get to that in a moment. He didn't play a single snap. And I saw him do a backflip before the game. I was at the game, so I didn't see it. But yeah, Florida played exceptionally well. I know there's no such thing as moral victories. But as Florida played exceptionally well, especially down 21-3. As I'm trying to get a couple of stats from the Florida-Alabama game. I want to know how many rushing yards Alabama did end up having. It was 91. So they had 30 in the first half, 61 in the second half. Alabama ended up with 81 yards and penalties. That's not something you see every day.